other kids? Who's saying hi there?
Wave, say hi.
Hi. Hi.
Hi. So good to see you guys. You doing okay?
Yeah.
Did you start school yet?
No, we're actually homeschooled. Yeah, actually.
Oh, no wonder you're so smart. That answers it. Okay, good for you. So you're in good shape. All righty, go right ahead, Uncle Dave. Welcome back.
Good morning, boys and girls. Our Bible verse today is Isaiah 41:10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand. So the Limpkin, I gave the Bible verse. I'll come back to the Bible verse. But the Limpkin, what's very interesting about the Limpkin, in North America, you will only find the Limpkin in Florida. It cannot be found in California, Ohio, Kansas, Massachusetts, Texas. It's only found in Florida.
I did not know that.
Also find the Limpkin in the Caribbean islands, and there's a little part of Mexico that you can find it. And then there's places all the way down to South America, east of the Andes, where it's more jungle and not as dry. You'll find them there as well. They like habitats that are woody and bushy with fresh water. So that's very important. But here in the United States, we are blessed by having the ability to see the Limpkin. Now, the Limpkin is very interesting. Some cool facts about it. When you get a group of Limpkins together, they're called hobblings of Limpkins. And the name Limpkin, they think, comes from the way the bird walks. It appeared to the earlier Europeans that they had a limp. And so that's why Limpkins. The bill is also very unique. If you look at the picture and you look at the end of the bill, it's like twisted a little, and there's a little gap that helps it to act like tweezers so it can enter into the curve of the snail's shell to get to the snail. The other interesting fact about here is that the outermost flight feathers are sickle-shaped, but broad at the tip. What do I mean by sickle-shaped? They're like curled. So they're like a curve shape. And this is especially seen in males. And they said that the feathers when they're flying, make a loud buzzing sound like winnowing. And this is apparently how the male Limpkins mark their territory, even at night. And they closely, even though they look like ibises, but they're more related to rails and cranes. When we talk about size, this is very interesting. The size of a Limpkin, it's greater than night herons, larger than a goose, but it's smaller than the great egret. And when we talk about length, we know that a ruler is 12 inches. 3 rulers is 36 inches, which is a yard. And so the Limpkin lengthwise from bill to tail is just over 24 inches or 2 feet, but yet it's less than a yard. So like 28 inches, 29 inches is the longest it is. When it comes to weight, it's 34 to 48 ounces, and I will show you another picture in just a minute. Its wingspan, when it spreads out its wings, it's over 3 feet long. It's like almost 40 inches long. So 3 feet is 36 inches. So it's just over 3 feet. I told you about weight. Now this is what I love. Each box of these multi-grain Cheerios is 12 ounces. So the weight of a Limpkin is either 3 to 4 boxes. So that's how much, if you ever pick up one of these boxes of 12-inch cereals and you pick up 3, then you know that's the minimum weight of a Limpkin. If you pick up 4, that's the maximum weight. When we come to color pattern, one of the things that's unique with the, that stands out, it's brown, but it has a lot of white spangling or spots all over its neck and the wings, especially the neck that looks more white. So here you can see in this picture, you have an adult, and then you have a juvenile. You'll see the juvenile doesn't have as many of the white spots on the latter part of the body, on the feathers. And then you have a baby chick there as well. Now, it does say, if you look carefully, the bill is slightly what they called decurved. So it's not straight. It has a slight bend to it. It has a long neck, and when it flies, it's kind of like a direct flight, but with quick wing upstrokes and slow downstrokes. Now, behavior. One of the things that when you see a Limpkin and it's stalking its nails, the snails that it feeds on apple snails. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But it slowly walks through shallow water or on top of floating vegetation. Their feet have long toes and are spread apart that help distribute its weight. The other interesting thing is that Limpkins are at home in trees. They're very good tree climbers. They also swim pretty well. They hold their tail out of the water just like rails do. And they can be very placid, except they do defend their territory from other Limpkins. So when we talk about where do they live, they need fresh water. So freshwater wetlands. They don't like really deep water. It's more of a shallow water, and they can be found in the wetlands. They can be found in cane fields where the water is shallow, even ponds and lakes and canals. But the water level has to be on the lower side, and it has to be fresh water, and the water has to be clean fresh water. And that's where they find their apple snails. Here's a picture of an apple snail. Now the snail, when it goes in its shell, closes a door, and it's kind of a hard calcium-like door that keeps it protected if it gets too dry, so they can seal themselves off. But the Limpkin's bill, as I mentioned, is curved, so they can hook into there and also break that door to get the snail out. But the apple snail needs fresh water. So if we lose our fresh water, the apple snails disappear. If the apple snails disappear, then the snail kites disappear. The Limpkins will decrease. Now the Limpkins don't just eat apple snails, but they eat other frogs and crustaceans and seeds. But the snail kite relies on the apple snail. And so if we lose the apple snail to pollution, then we lose the snail kite. Now, nesting locations. They'll nest in the grass, marsh grass. And when they do that, the nest is only like 3 inches deep there. And they line it with the vegetation of the grass around it. And it's a round nest. But it's not far from water, and they usually try to keep it partially hidden. But if you look at the top right of my screen, you'll see they also build in trees, because remember I said they can climb trees, and they're very adapted in the trees, and they'll build a nest of sticks. But they'll line their nest in trees. They'll line it with moss for the babies. So they can be found also in holes like made from the pileated woodpecker, large tree cavity, or old osprey nests. So they can nest in a variety of places. The nest itself, I mentioned, is circular, and some of the nests can be woven, Some can be just haphazardly looking like the basic nest, but it can be used with sticks, stalks, vines, leaves, rushes, in line with Spanish moss or other vegetation. The Limpkins also will construct what we call the brooding platform. Now, the brooding platform is similar to the nest, but probably it's a bigger and it's probably raised up a little more because that's where they place the babies after they hatch, so they have more room to walk around, but not to get lost. Now, Limpkins can have anywhere from 4 to 7 eggs. The eggs are kind of lightish gray, white, or olive with brown streaks and blotches. Um, they can have 4 to 7 eggs in each, what we call a brood or nesting time. And during the year, they can have up to 1 to 3 broods. So they can have a lot of babies. The eggs are just under like 2.5 inches long and about an inch and just over an inch and a half wide. And how long does it take for a baby to hatch from an egg? Well, let me just say, think of February with 28 days. That's how long, 26 to 28 days. So you think of Limpkins just thinking, oh, we just have February, every month is a February because we can have babies. So you can think of that. And the interesting thing about the babies, when they're hatched, they're covered with a down and they can swim, walk, and run immediately. So it doesn't, like some babies, it takes a long time before they even get their feathers and before they can even see, because a lot of babies are born blind. But the Limpkins babies are covered with down and are able to swim, walk, and run. So this brings us back to our text again, Isaiah 41:10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand. When I think of the Limpkins and I think on how they care for their young, this verse brings me back to God has promised that He is with us. He will give us the strength we need and the help we need. He is always there, so we don't have to fear. We can trust in Him and hold fast to His promises. And so we need to remember that. Every time we go out and you see the birds or the animals, think of God's love for you, and He's there for you and wants to protect you and strengthen you and uplift you. I hope you have a great Sabbath day, boys and girls.
Amen. We have some kids. I'm going to put my screen down. Wait a minute. I got to share my screen. Let's see here. And we're going to draw the Limpkin. Boy, I've been, whoops. Let's just see here. Share screen, share whiteboard. Okay. All right. Here we go. Yeah, I've been, I got my own bird book now, so I'm all excited. And I have been doing a little bird watching myself. All right, here we go. So I'm going to get my black. I'm going to get a skinnier line here. I'm going to get this one. And we are going to start with the head. Then we're going to go down. I'm going to pick back up. And I'm going to, I hope I can erase just a tiny bit of the line. Oh, it erased the whole thing. That's what I was afraid of. All right, I want to make that head a little smaller. All right, we're going to go down. Okay, now we're going to make that beak, which you said is a little bit curved. So we're going to make it a little bit curved. Now we're going to come back up to this skinny neck. All right, and we're going to do the back of them. Up to here. I'm going to go over to here. So I got the other tail feather. Okay, now we're going to make his legs. So we're going to give him a little bend in the leg. And we're going to make his toe. This other one. This one. And this one. All right, now we're going to have to make his other leg. Goes to here. Yeah, the whole time I was practicing drawing this last night, I was thinking of the anahinga. That's why I was like, oh, that's a bird that dries its wings. Okay, well, I'm glad I asked that. But I did find a new bird this week when I went out, and I looked in my bird book and I identified it by the colors and the size and all the things we've been learning. And I know that I found the ruddy turnstone. So I was so excited when I looked and I was like, wait a minute, that's the only one with that color of leg. That's the only one. So I matched it right up. Okay, so we have our basic shape of the bird. Mine doesn't look too happy, does he? He looks a little mad. Okay, now we're going to put in some of the coloration, which makes this bird very unique. So remember, you start kind of small. So you got these little scallopy looking things on the head, but you're going to start small, and that's anything kind of with perspective too. You start really small, and then it kind of, and I'm going to just kind of give this kind of a hashed look down the side here, kind of down here, just so you can see there's a little pattern going on here. And then it's going to get bigger. And then what I'm going to do is grab some black, make this tool a little wider, and I'm going to get some of this black, nice black in here. And as you work your picture, you see that it gets better. And what you can do is leave some little white marks, but we're going to leave more as we go up for this really interesting pattern that we're going to see. I'm going to make this kind of dark black. And as usual, the picture gets better as you continue to work on it. The first thing is just a little thing to get you started. Okay. And then make sure now that we leave these interesting marks in here. And towards the back, they're a little bit bigger. And then as you work up, they'll be not quite as big. But that's what will make this kind of characteristic, I think, that somebody's going to look at and say, oh, that kind of looks like a Limpkin. Yeah, and I did not know. Can you imagine that, boys and girls? We're the only ones here in Florida. We're the only state that has this bird. So when you see one, and you should be able to say now, you can impress your friends and your moms and dads and say, oh, look, there's a Limpkin. And you're going to remember because you took the time to draw this very intricate pattern here. I think I'll put a little brown because it's kind of a mix. But that's so interesting to think that if you lived in any other state, you would not see the bird. Can you imagine that? Now, as we go up, let's make our white spaces not quite as many and a little bit smaller. And that's because as they go up, you don't quite see them as much. And let's just kind of go into kind of a little XX pattern. And then I'm going to make my, boy, I feel bad that I'm making my guy looking so mad. I hope I can fix that when I work on his face. Because I don't think he said anything about it being a mad, angry bird. Not any more angry than any other bird, except if you're taking its food or something. Okay, my legs are a little fat, but we'll get to that. All right, let's see what I can get to his beak. And we're going to put his beak kind of yellowish here. See if I can get him to not look so mad. All right, and we're going to give him a little black on the tip of his beak here. We'll put a little line here. All right. Okay, let's see what we can, let's give him a little shadow in here. If we can put that skinnier. Kind of can tell there that there's a little shadow. Okay, let's see what we can do with these legs that I made too fat. because if I try to erase him, it'll erase everything. But let's give him a little dimension anyway. All right. He's not looking too bad. He's not looking too bad. Not too happy, but that's okay. I bet somebody could recognize him as a Limpkin, actually. All right. Anything else I want to do with him? Maybe I'll give him a little more brown on his head over here. And I think this guy is probably pretty close to being done. Let's just see something. I want to put a little coloration in here. Give him a little more color. Give him a little bit here. And I think we're almost time for the song. What do you think, guys? You like him?
Pretty good.
Yay! I'm happy with him. I had to practice him a lot last night. I wasn't happy with my first 3 tries. So, all right. Time for. Oh, let's see if anybody wants to show theirs. Let me take my share off. Okay. Anybody want to show theirs? Ricky and Dixie, you got anything over there? Anybody else got anything, Mariah? Or you want to? Oh, you got something. Look at you. Look at you. That's so nice. Great job. You're quite an artist.
Awesome.
Isn't that something? Anybody else want to show theirs?
I have mine. I have a flat head.
Oh, look at
I
that.
have Limpkin.
Very good. I really like the beak. Yeah. Okay. Let's do our song.
Good job, kids. So Uncle Dave used shared with us Isaiah 41 verse 10. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And in order for us to do that, boys and girls, we have to put all of our trust in Him and build everything in our life on Him. So
Thank you. It's like we're almost getting ready for church time. So we just want to say thanks to all the boys and girls, and I'll turn it over to the pastor. We got about 2 minutes here.
What does that look like? Does it have a particular color on it that gives it makes it look interesting? Here's a chunk of it right here. You see that? When years ago in our nation's history, somebody way out in California stumbled across something in a stream there, and it was gold. And the next thing you knew, you had people heading in crowds to the West Coast because they figured they could go out there and get wealthy by panning or looking for their own gold. And many times when they were out there looking for gold, they would find chunks of this stuff right here, and they would go running into the village that was near them. And in the village, there was an individual who was called an assayer. And the assayer would look at what they brought and tell them how much their gold was worth. Many times people would show up with this stuff right here, and the assayer would look at that and say, I'm sorry, this is not gold. This is what's called, you know the name? Come on, some of you know the name of this. It's called fool's gold. I guess you're all muted. I'm expecting you to act like we were really in front of each other. But anyhow, they would look at this and they would say, no, this is fool's gold. In other words, this looks like gold, but it isn't. And what it's made out of is a mixture of 2 different substances. One was iron and the other was sulfur or pyrite. So this is called iron pyrite, but it's also called fool's gold because it looks like it, but isn't the real thing. Now, I actually have, years ago, somebody actually gave me these containers. I got about 3 of these containers here. They found them in the deserts of Utah. And what they are is they're the little ceramic containers that they would use to melt down the dust, the gold dust that they found by panning in streams. And they would pour it into the metal, into the forms that would form the ingots for the gold. And And on the bottom of each of these cups is actually the measurement of how much gold dust it would actually hold. And but sometimes what happens, when you look at life, let me set this down. When you look at life, sometimes the devil does the same thing to us. He gets us all excited about something that isn't real or genuine. He gets us going after fool's gold, things that look like they have value but really don't. What the people that were looking for this, that found the fool's gold, were looking for was this right here. That's a little bottle with some gold in it. And here's a little gold dust in this thing. Don't worry, they're only worth about maybe $3 or $4 a piece. The oil, in fact, in the little bottle actually makes it look bigger than it really is. And the oil, they used oil specifically for that purpose. But here's the point. Sometimes Satan gets us looking for we get looking for the things of value in life, and instead we get sidetracked off to things that are not of any value. And that's what we want to do is to make sure that we are always seeking God's will, because what God wants for us is worth more than anything that the world can offer. And as long as if we're looking for the real thing, we have to come to God, because everything else is fake. Everything else is fool's gold. It looks like it has value, but it doesn't really. Let me have a little prayer with you, okay? Father in heaven, I pray for all of our young people. I know that this is a very difficult time for them to understand what is going on, and it's hard for us to understand. But I pray, dear Lord, that you'll be with them in a special way. Help them to look for the things that are of real worth in this life. Give them a hunger and a desire for the things of value. Just bless them, dear Lord, and keep them, I pray, in Jesus' name. Amen.